Where am I?
You're making a video about the Slender Man movie in 2024? Now!
No, that couldn't be. I can't be stuck in a review of the Slender Man movie. What the hell? Where? I guess this is indeed a review of the Slender Man movie. I sure hope that ominous nightmare won't turn out to be foreshadowing. So, Slender Man. You know who he is. You know his history. He started out on old forums, then became massively popular because of the 8 Pages game, then got cringified by the internet, then now he's back to being kind of obscure. If you somehow didn't know his history, then there. I just summarized a decade and a half of internet lore. And then, in 2018, when Slender Man and creepypastas as a whole were well past their peak popularity, Hollywood, being the out-of-touch f***s they are, decided to make a movie about him. Now, this wasn't actually the first, because there's a surprising amount of Slender Man movies. Even Marvel Hornets got one. But it was the first big budget one, and I'm pretty confident in saying that it's probably the worst horror movie, and one of the worst movies in general, that I've ever seen. But to explain why it's truly so god awful, first I'll have to tell you what happens in this atrocity of a movie. So get out your vodka and painkillers, maybe mix them up into a nice, highly addictive and potentially poisonous cocktail. Trust me, you'll need it. And let's get into this. Oh yeah, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, or else I'll be standing outside your window tonight, and I won't say anything, and you won't say anything, but we'll both know. So the movie opens up with these two girls looking at cat videos, and immediately I noticed something. The dialogue is terrible.
Much cuter if you were wearing little shoes. It'd be cuter if he exploded at the end. Meow.
Ugh, I just took psychic damage from that. So these are our main characters. Hallie, the main girl. Katie, who I could easily just call plot device for the rest of the video because that's all she is. But I won't, because I already did that in my last video. You can watch that here. Just an idea. Chloe's basically just a body for the count, and then there's also Ren, who's the emo weirdo who gets obsessed with Slender Man. I'll skip past their awkward-ass flirting with some guys and skip straight to the Slender summoning. While they're having a sleepover, Chloe brings up that the guys are gonna meet up to summon Slendy tonight, so they look up some stuff about him and then watch a spooky video that I guess is supposed to summon the tall boy. This entire scene gives me extreme how do you do fellow kids energy. Also, the video sucks. It just looks like a really bad analog horror video. It's also really funny that this ancient eldritch horror is summoned by watching a shitty YouTube video. Hold on, I gotta go check something.
You should yourself now.
The girls are really scared after for some reason, which doesn't work because the video isn't fucking scary. Then they go to sleep. Hallie has a spooky dream, which is basically just the Slender video again. Then we skip ahead 1 week. They all go on a school trip to a graveyard. Don't ask me why, they're on a trip to some random graveyard. The girls talk about how they've all been having weird dreams lately. Katie sees something in the woods. We don't see anything, but I guess Slender Man's hiding in the woods. Then she disappears. The cops get called, but they obviously don't find her, and everyone goes home. That night, Hallie's talking to her sister, Lizzie. She'll be important later, don't forget her. But then, they hear a noise from downstairs. Hallie goes down, and here I just want to complain about a small little problem. It's so f***ing dark. Now, I did watch it in pretty crunchy quality, so that didn't help things, but it's still ridiculously dark. Sometimes I genuinely can't even tell what's going on. Like here, Hallie walks into the room and something appears, but I can barely tell that anything's even there. The only reason I even know that something is supposed to appear there is because of the stupid audio cue. Which, that's another problem. The movie relies way too much on audio cues to try and scare you, which is quite literally the laziest kind of jump scare. And jump scares are already the laziest kind of horror, so that's lazy squared. So Hallie runs back upstairs and locks the door, but it turns out that this isn't yet the arrival of Slender, Instead, it's just Katie's drunk dad. Hallie tries to talk with him, but he starts blaming her for getting Katie into the occult. Then he attacks her, but she pushes him off and then runs away. Then we cut to the dad being arrested. Yeah, we just kind of awkwardly cut to that. The next day, the girls meet back up at school, and Hallie tells them that Katie's dad broke in and that he blamed her for getting Katie into the occult.
This could be the next wrinkle in the story.
Yes, a very normal, sane reaction to your friend telling you that your other missing friend's dad broke into their house. So, Ren assumes that the video had something to do with Katie's disappearance, which just makes her seem like a gullible idiot. She brings up that it affected them all, but the only indication of that is that they all had some spooky dreams, which isn't really that weird considering that the video is supposed to be really scary, but somehow Ren convinces the other girls to sneak into Katie's house and snoop through her room. So you want to commit a crime and break into a grieving alcoholic father's house, just on your gullible dumbass friend's hunch that you'll find something useful there. Not only does that make all of you pretty damn unlikable, but also that's a really stupid plan, especially because he's an alcoholic. Like, maybe he'll just beat the shit out of you. And the movie makes it seem like they don't suspect him, so that doesn't explain it either. So they commit a whole ass crime just on a hunch. So they find Katie's laptop hidden in a closet. Why was it hidden there? I don't know. The movie doesn't explain it. Did Katie hide it there? Why? The dad wouldn't have hidden it there. He would have absolutely given it to the cops. Also, speaking of the cops, wouldn't the dad still be at the station? I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be the next day, so wouldn't he still be locked up? They go back to Chloe's house and log into the laptop. Katie apparently had been spending some time on the Slender version of Live Leaks, so the girls watch some of the videos. The first one just looks like a shitty Chills video. Number 15. The last thing you'd want while out with your kids is a tall white guy with tentacles watching you from the woods. But as it turns out, that might be what you'll get. The second video feels like one of those really terrible old chase station videos, you know? Like, Slender Man tried to kidnap me at 3 a.m. Not fake, cops called. Videos with like 60 red arrows in the thumbnail. Just look at this.
What is that? Judy's there. I can't see.
Then they figure out that Katie was chatting with someone called AlleyCat93. She apparently sent whoever that is a video of her encountering Slendy, and it also looks terrible. It looks way too professional and doesn't even look like she's holding the phone. Seriously, why didn't they just hand her an actual phone and record it on that? In fact, why does she have the camera pointed at her? Wouldn't you want the camera to be pointed ahead of you so you can show Slender Man? Like, now, I know, I'm complaining a lot. It probably seems like there's something wrong with every scene. And that's because there is. I genuinely think that there isn't a single scene that doesn't have something wrong with it. And trust me, I am trying not to mention every single thing. But it's kinda hard. Anyways, Slendy's shadow appears behind them, then we cut to later that night. Ren decides it's a smart idea to talk with AlleyCat69, and the next day she tells the other girls that AlleyCat420 told her how Slendy works, and that Katie offered herself to Slender Man. Ah yes, because that's the reasonable thing to assume. Not that AlleyCat might have kidnapped Katie, or at least had something to do with her going missing. No. Obviously, she sacrificed herself to the eldritch manifestation of minimum wage workers. Ren then explains that Katie performed a ritual to contact Slender Man, and then she says that they should do the same thing so they can get her back. And for some unholy reason, the other girls go along with it. Why would you believe her? She's acting like a neurotic lunatic. And even if we just ignore that for a moment, she's suggesting that they perform the same ritual as Katie to try and get her back. But if she disappeared after doing that, then why wouldn't he be able to take all of you as well, if you also performed the same ritual? This wouldn't be quite as stupid if they were like 11, but they're like 17. They're almost fully functional adults, and they're believing this shit. So they go into the woods, smash some sentimental items, and the movie just zooms through all their tragic backstories, because they know that we don't care. Then they put on their blindfolds, and Chloe hears some spooky noises, and takes off her blindfold like a idiot. She sees Slendy, runs away, Slendy grabs her, gives her Slender syphilis, and the other girls find her and they go home. Slendy then shows up at Chloe's house because he saw her OnlyFans and decided that he really wanted to make some content with her. Chloe tries to tell him, about consent, but like any nice guy would, he immediately tries to strangle her. Yes, Slender Man, this ancient eldritch being, still just has to strangle her. Yes, this demon still just has to strangle him. Whoa, deja vu. Anyways, the next day she doesn't show up to school. After school, this semi-hot guy Tom comes up to Hallie and asks her out, but Hallie's kinda distracted by the wild Slender Man just standing there. Menacingly! But she agrees to come over to his house later anyways. Meanwhile, Ren's at the unreasonably creepy library doing some research into Slendy. Her research basically just amounts to some random meaningless snippets and some missing persons posters. Then she finds a book, and then Slendy attacks her. We get some terrible visual effects like what is this? And then Slendy attacks her again. She falls over and decides not to run for some reason. Slendy gets weirdly sensual and then he takes her face, which looks terrible and ends up just being really funny. She eventually trips over a little book cart and gets her face back. The next day she tries to show the book to Hallie and here's my genuine reaction.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
It's literally just meaningless bullshit. None of this means anything. We don't learn anything from this book. Like, they tried to make a big deal out of it, but it means nothing. Hallie mentions that she hasn't heard from Chloe in days, and then they go to Chloe's house. But Chloe's slender syphilis has progressed to the point that she looks slightly disheveled. And that's the last we see of her. Yeah, she just vanishes from the movie after this. There's not even a random line about how she died or went missing or something. She just literally disappears and she's never mentioned again. Then they GTFO. Aren't you guys supposed to be friends? Why wouldn't you try to talk with her? Just, see what's going on with her? While they're walking back home, they start arguing and Hallie's kinda sick of Ren's shit and points out that Alley Cat's probably just some neckbeard redditor with them. Then Hallie goes off to Tom's house. They get ready to hump. But we get another terrible jump scare. And I'll just let my actual reaction speak for itself. Was that supposed to be a jump scare? This is genuinely the worst jump scare I've ever seen. It's an atrocity. It's also really funny. I don't know why they add this in. So, Hallie tells Tom about the Slender video and also tells him not to watch it. The next day in biology class, what do you know? He watched the video. And that's also the last we see of him. Yeah, he also just vanishes from the movie. There's more I want to say about this scene, but I'll get to that later. So later that night, Hallie's texting Ren, but then she hears Katie calling out to her. So she goes outside into the woods, sees Slendy, hides behind a f***ing tree because I guess being around Ren has drained her f***ing IQ. Then Slendy grabs her, but it was all a dream. So she goes into the bathroom, starts coughing, and... What the fuck? Yep, she got pregnant from the slender syphilis. It's not scary. I don't get it. What the f***? Then she wakes up for real. And I'll just speedrun the last, 15 minutes of the movie because there's not much to actually talk about. So Lizzie's now got the slender syphilis out of nowhere. So she gets taken to the hospital. We get more spooky nonsense for the sake of spooky nonsense. There's literally just 5 minutes of this shit. Then Hallie goes home, logs into Lizzie's laptop, and finds a video on the Slender site of her doing the ritual with Ren. Fucking plot twist, am I right? So she goes to Ren's house, and it turns out Ren's gone nuts. I know, right? You really couldn't tell. There's Slender Man fan art all over the wall. She's probably writing whole fanfics involving her, Slendy, and a lot of tentacles. And Ren's standing at the edge of the window. Why is she there? I don't know. No clue. Absolutely no idea. No possible clue. No very obvious answer. Right, YouTube? Hallie pulls her back inside, and Ren explains that she took Lizzie into the woods to sacrifice her to Slendy to get Katie back. I think she doesn't really explain it well. Then Slender Man teleports into the house, but it's just a fake out so he can surprise us by grabbing Ren with his big, terrible CGI tree branch arms. Hold on, if you can just take her this easily, then why the f have you been doing all this cutesy spooky shit? And I know, you might say, well, it's because he enjoys toying with them, but that never actually seems to be the case. Also, it's really inconsistent how much Slendy can actually do. In some scenes, it seems like he can only make people hallucinate, drive them mad, so indirectly with them, but in others, he can do shit like this, so like, how powerful is he? Does he have to play mind games, or can he just kill his victims? Then I guess Hallie has some sort of epiphany, which doesn't make any sense because she hasn't learned anything new to have an epiphany about. But anyways, she goes into the woods and encounters Slender Man. He tells him to take her, but then she runs away when he grows his big spider legs. So what, you didn't want him to actually take you? Aren't you trying to sacrifice yourself to save Lizzie? Anyways, she runs, but Slendy grabs her and absorbs her into his tree. Lizzie gets scared and then narrates about how Slender Man spreads because people keep talking about it, and that's what he feeds on. And that's it. That's how it ends. Hallie gets grabbed. Lizzie does some light narrating. Credits. And you know what the worst part is? The credits are the best part of the movie. And that's not, that's not just a joke. I mean, seriously, the credits give me a vibe that the rest of the movie never gave me. Like, more of this vibe, please. Less pregnancy jump scares. So as you can tell, I don't like this movie, in case my copious complaining didn't make it painfully obvious. But you better strap in, cause I'm not done complaining yet. So, this is a horror movie, right? Alright, well, problem is, it's not f***ing scary. I think the biggest reason for that is the god-awful hyperactive editing. Why does the camera have a seizure every time Slender Man's around? And what the hell was wrong with that Tom scare? Who decided that it was a good idea to have the background zoom in and out like that? It just looks annoying. Like, do you want to give me a seizure? And then, there's all the random flashes of spooky imagery. Again, this isn't scary, it's just annoying. And it would be one thing if this happened once, but this happens like 3 times in the movie. Just a montage of random, unrelated, quote-unquote scary images. And there's not even any symbolism, it's just random scary nonsense for the sake of random scary nonsense. The worst part though, is that every single attempt at horror is just a jump scare. Now, I'm not gonna go on a long rant about how jump scares suck ass, because let's be real, you already know that jump scares suck ass. So, I'll keep it short. Jump scares suck because they release all the tension you've built up, and because they're lazy and cheap. Most of the horror here comes from jump scares, which means that most of the horror is lazy and cheap. Like, I'm sure that they thought that the whole scene in the library was supposed to have me shaking in me boots, but instead it just had me sitting there, stone-faced, praying for it to end because it was so f***ing boring. Now, let me try to be a little bit positive, cause my therapist told me to. I think the score by Brandon Campbell and Ramin Djawadi is pretty good. You might recognize that last guy, cause he's the one that does all the music for Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And the music's pretty good here as well. It's got this dark droning sound to it that I think really fits with the vibe that the movie's going for.
But
yeah, there really isn't a single thing in this movie that's just good. Everything has some sort of problem with it. They rely way too much on the music to make the scenes creepy, but some scenes would have been creepier without the music. It would have genuinely been scarier to just have the girls in the woods with nothing more than the audio of the wind, the branches creaking, and the leaves crunching under their feet. Really, it just feels like the movie's trying way too hard to convince me that it's scary instead of actually being scary. And it's really clear that they didn't actually understand how to make Slender Man creepy, which is kind of embarrassing because all they had to do was look at Marble Hornets. Marble Hornets understood that you can't make Slender Man such a big focus. He works best when he's in the background or when you only get a quick glimpse. He works when he's a creeping horror, slowly creeping up in the background, not when he's constantly right in your face. And just think about how embarrassing it is that a shitty YouTube series with a piss budget manages to beat a $10 million movie from Sony in every single regard. Okay, but to be fair, the complete lack of horror can be made up for by a decent plot and some good characters. But if you've been paying even the slightest bit of attention, then you've probably realized that the characters suck and the plot's dumb. There's honestly not much to say about the plot, there's just nothing really to it. It's the most boring, by the numbers, ooh, we summoned something spooky and now it's haunting us movie you can imagine. But just with Slender Man thrown in for spice. You've seen this movie 1,000 times. And the characters are just annoying. Chloe and Katie are literal nothing characters. Katie's just a plot device and Chloe doesn't have a single identifiable trait. Ren is an annoying, gullible idiot who ends up going full schizo. And Hallie's fine, but she's still not great. And when the entire rest of the cast sucks this hard, having one decent character doesn't mean much. But by far the biggest problem with the movie is that it's straight up unfinished. You see, I do actually remember watching the trailer back in 2018, and I remember all these scenes in the trailer that weren't actually in the movie. So I rewatched the trailer, and I realized just how much they actually cut out. Remember how Chloe just awkwardly vanishes from the movie? Yeah, well, originally she was supposed to turn her brain into a kebab during the biology class scene. Remember how Tom watched the video, but it ended up amounting to quite literally nothing? Yeah, he was supposed to slow-mo hit the gritty off the school's roof. I didn't even mention this, but Hallie eventually figures out that Alley Cat's some crazy girl in a mental hospital, but that just never comes up again for some reason. And I think originally there was supposed to be a scene of Hallie confronting Alley Cat, but if that is the case, then for whatever reason they decided to just cut all of that out as well. But honestly, even if they'd kept those scenes in, it still wouldn't have made the movie that much better. It would still suck massive, sweaty balls. It would just suck slightly less. But despite how terrible the movie is, I think that it could have been good. And I don't think that they had to rip off Marble Hornets to make it work. I think Slender Man can work in a more cinematic movie like this. Problem is that Slender Man isn't anything more than just a spooky monster here. Sure, they try to shove in some half-assed bullshit about Slender Man being a mind virus, but they don't really do anything interesting with it. There's not even any interesting plot twists. We basically learn everything about him in the first 20 minutes and that's it. Why does he kidnap people? Why does he fuck with people? Who knows? And sure, Slendy does work best when he's left somewhat mysterious, but you can't give me some half-assed answers and then not actually give me a real reason why he's doing this. I think this movie could have worked if they'd left Slender Man as more of a background presence. If he hadn't been the focus, but more of maybe a metaphor for, I don't fucking know, man, I'm not a fucking screenwriter, just maybe even if it'd been left ambiguous whether he's even real and, you know, it would have been more interesting, but instead they just turned him into any other boring movie monster. He's the fucking bye-bye man with a tie and a sock on his head. So, in conclusion, this is the worst horror movie I've ever seen. There is not a single good part to this entire movie. Even the things that I like still have some sort of problem, and there's not a lot of things that I like. The characters suck. There's no horror, and they made Slender Man boring. Just watch Marble Hornets instead. I've said all I want to say, so I'm gonna go and... Oh no. I was really hoping that that ominous dream wasn't foreshadowing, but, well, guess it was, so, I'm gonna go get slendered. Bye. Come on, fucking do it already, get it over with. Get it over with. What's the jump scare gonna be? Is she gonna look up and realize, oh shit, Slendy's actually in my guts right now?